Right off the bat, I'm just wondering, what's your level of comfort in Linus Ullmark as your number one goalie moving forward? And is this a player that you still want to evaluate, given that he hasn't played an entire season and it was only really 2 good months of hockey last year?
Yeah, how you doing, Lance? I think Linus is really taking strides over the last couple seasons. When I first started in this role, one of the most important first conversations I had with the coaching staff and was where are we in that, and the feeling, and I think everybody feels really good about the steps that Linus took last year, and we're excited about him. I think you look back at his track record of kind of where he came from and the success he had and the steps along the way. He's had a good progression, and he had a very good year last year.
Hey, Kevin, Heather Prusak here with the CBS station here in Buffalo. Good to see you. Just wanted to ask you, I have 2 questions for you. One, where is your relationship at this point with Jack Eichel? Because I know there were some things on Twitter that there were unverified chatter, I think was the phrase, that he may have recently requested a trade, but then his agent said that's not the case. Can you just kind of shed some light on that and where your relationship is with him now? And then second question is, looking ahead to the draft, how do you balance with this 8th overall pick? How do you balance, drafting and wanting to restock, your prospects and things like that, but then needing, immediate help right away?
Yeah, it's a good question, Heather, on the, how you kind of handle that. I think you have to be willing to listen to everything when it comes to how do you make your team better, and you balance it. I think that's a perfect way of saying it. You have to think about what the number 8 pick could mean to the organization, short and long term. You have to analyze the draft class and what the depth of it is, and you're having all that while you're having parallel conversations around what's going on in the league and how can you improve your team. So those all happen. They're happening every day, all the time. So it's just that balance and trying to put ourselves in a position where we're making the best decision for the organization. And it comes to your first question. Yeah, good relationship with Jack. We've chatted a few times. Obviously players, when I first started, I reached out to everybody, had a little bit of a chat. I connect, from time to time with Jack, and I'm looking forward to getting to know him more as hopefully we get back into a mode where everybody's in town and we're into a rhythm of a season. And just, I think I'm really big on building relationships, and I think that that's a critical part of this. I've told all the players that I am just going to be myself. I'm not going to be sitting upstairs in an office and not around. I want to hear from the players. I want to talk to them. I want to get to know them as people, and be around the locker room, ask questions. I always felt as a player that they know a lot. They know what, just not only what a team needs, but what's going on in the game right now. These are really important conversations that myself, Ralph, the coaching staff, we all have with each other, but I think needs to be part of moving forward some of the players as well.
Hey, Kevin, Brayton Wilson for WGR Sports Radio 550. Thanks again for doing this. Hope you're well. Just want to get your thoughts on the process with doing your first draft, with being the first draft as a general manager. What are some of the things that you've taken from this, and how unique is this for you and your staff with everything that's gone on with this whole process due to COVID-19?
Yeah. Wow. Well, the first draft, I don't know if you can, because we're virtual here, you can see it, but there's an intensity that I'm feeling right now. It's been, the process itself, Braden, has been really, really impressive from the amount of work that's been done by the staff. I have to say that the extra time because of COVID, and here we are in October, and the draft being pushed back is certainly unique. And I looked at it as an opportunity for us to learn more and do more. And I give Jeremiah Crow and Jason Nightingale and the entire scouting staff a ton of credit, because there was a challenge to them in June to say, let's really make sure we're taking another look at this, and we're gonna reset some metrics of how we're gonna evaluate players. And those guys really bought in and have covered an incredible amount of ground. And now here we are. So there's an intensity about it. I'm excited. I'm learning. I've been talking to the other general managers every day around the clock, and some of the veteran ones, even this morning that I talked to, they asked me how I'm doing. I said, I'm excited. It's, my first time through this. And they said, well, 10, 15 of them, and you're still nervous, excited, and anxious, and all those good things. So I just think that's it's fun. But in terms of how we're preparing and what we're doing, I think our guys are ready to go. There'll be more conversations and meetings, through tonight into tomorrow, but I'm excited. It's fun.
Thanks.
Hey there, Kevin. Mike Harrington here. Thanks for your time. Bob McKenzie is no small name, nor is Elliot Friedman. So when they start talking about a trade of Jack Eichel, it's going to become a thing. Now, when you addressed it on the Instigators last week, you said, my job is to listen. We have no intention. We're not looking to do anything with Jack. You've talked here now about your job is to listen. That hardly says at all, we're not trading Jack Eichel. At this point today, do you want to give the fans some clarity on this topic? What is your level of concern that your captain may not be all in on this organization at this point? And is it possible that a player the franchise threw an entire season for you might be willing to trade?
Yeah, I can clarify, Mike. And you know what? I appreciate the way you said that. I agree, Elliot and Bob, and I've known those guys a long time, and they're respected in this business. I have zero concern on Jack wanting to be here. Have had great conversations with him, his representatives. I'm not really sure where that's come from, and I know there's been even more stuff recently, I was told. There's no intention of moving Jack Eichel, and I can make that very clear. What I said on Instigators was, when people call every day, and you listen, and people bring players' names up and ask, but I've have no interest in no reason, as I sit here today moving forward, that you'd want to do something like that. So I don't know if I'm hoping I'm clarifying it for you, but that to me it's an easy question, because we have no intention of doing that.
Hey, Kevin, John Worrell, AP, how you doing?
Hey, John.
Just to, I guess, to kind of piggyback on that, though, how much have you had to reassure your team leaders that this franchise is on a correct course, given the amount of uncertainty that's taken place, the upheaval that's taken place over the course of the summer, and all these questions about, whether it's Jack Eichel wanting a trade, or just there's a lot of speculation out there, or, when it comes to these reports that, you're going to be working under a limited salary cap, even though you addressed that issue the last call. How much do you need to reassure guys like Eichel that this franchise is on the right track in order for these guys to be bought in?
Yeah. I think, how do I say this the right way? I think it's great to have conversations and to explain the vision and the process we're going to go through and how we want to do this. And as I talk to Ralph and to players, and we all work through the different ways of how we're moving forward. But at the end of the day, it's just about earning the trust and the respect. And I completely understand that, and I'm excited about that. I don't think any player in our team should just sit here today and say, oh, that whatever Kevin said, that's great. Like, no, we have to earn it. We have to be who we need to be, which is the best version of ourselves individually and as a team. And I'm approaching this, John, with complete open and honesty with the players, with the coaches, mostly with you guys, but that's just how I am. I'm going to be myself. And I'm good with that. I'm good with players sitting in my office and asking honest questions. I think that's great. That's how you get better. So no issue with that at all.
Hi, Kevin. Bill Hoppy, Times Herald. The possible contract extensions for Sam Reinhart and Rasmus Dahlin. Do you envision the frozen cap throwing kind of a wrench into that it would have to come later because all the uncertainty, or is that something you would like to get going on as soon as you can, or have gotten going on?
Yeah, Bill, just you froze a little bit. Did you ask me about a contract for?
I'm sorry.
Just Darlene.
Yes, just with the uncertainty with this off season, the frozen cap, is that something that'll have to be dealt with later, or would you like to address that this off season? Along the deals.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same boat, and I've had a lot of these conversations just internally with our staff and with ownership, and saying, okay, you're trying to somewhat predict the future, which is difficult, and you're also trying to understand the world we're living in today. So you're kind of doing both, and then you want to make sure you're setting up your franchise in the short term and the long term for success. So for me, I when it comes to, I'll use Sam. I mean, I'm never going to talk about it publicly, conversations or private or strategy or what we're doing. But what I say is I understand how good of a player Sam Reinhart is and how good of a player he's been in this organization. So we want to make sure that we, like anything, you want to make sure you get to something with all players that works, and for both sides. And that's what we're going to do for all of them.
Hey, Kevin, John Vogel with The Athletic. Hope all is well. You mentioned yourself just talking to GMs all the time. That is something we hear all the time. Guys have been calling day and night. As you enter this first time doing this, have the calls been more than even you expected? And another thing, just on GMs on the night of the draft, it's usually fun to watch them go through tables. How will you guys handle chatting with each other during that?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I've had a lot of those types of conversations. As you guys know, this is my first draft as a general manager. So this is normal for me, right? Like trying to figure out, what is our landlines and cell phone numbers and contact information. So I think it's unique. But as I've spoken to the other general managers around the league, it's like, what, we're all in this position. You're having a lot of conversations before on the phone now to prepare, because I can't just walk over and tap someone on the shoulder, So I think it's going to be interesting. And, I've heard a couple of the managers say to me that they miss how being all together, that everybody's in the same city and everybody's just bumping into each other. Obviously we know why we're in this situation, but, I think it's going to be unique, but at least it's unique for all of us. And then, so I think there's going to be a lot of phones sitting around and making sure. I promise you that it won't be because we can't get a hold of someone if something doesn't happen, but it's going to be interesting for sure.
Kev, Mike Zeisberger from NHL.com. Still weird not seeing you put your sitting with your gear in your cubicle, but some of us date back that far. But if we talk to you in a week or two, what areas of this team specifically positionally are a priority for you? We saw that you already addressed partially center with Eric Stahl, but if there's one place more than others, whether it be free agency or via trade or via draft, that you'd like to improve, where would it be?
Yeah, Zeiss, it's a good question. And I'm going to probably sound generic, and I don't mean to, but it's the truth. I think we need to improve our roster, period. We need to become a better team. So as I've had conversations, I've not eliminated anything because I say, oh, we're fine here. We don't want to talk about this. You know what I mean? So if you just look at our team, yes, we have more right shot D than left shot D. So would we like to see something, our mix or how we get the partners working together? Definitely. But what I've tried to be very careful on doing is I've had conversations and I'm working my way around the league and talking about options and with other teams, is not just boxing ourselves in and say, I'm looking for this and this is it, So I think when you're getting to that point as a team, that means you may be the Tampa Bay Lightning and you just won a Stanley Cup and you have this team that you maybe it's a little tweak here or there. So, I do think that character is really important. I think, you have to look bigger than just what happens on the ice too. You need to think about your locker room. You need to think about the dynamic that's in the room and the veterans and how young players learn from veterans, and, even a younger, let's call him a younger veteran, like we re-signed Curtis Lazar, but he brings that character and that glue type player. So those are the things as I'm thinking about a roster. And again, I'm not doing this sitting in an office by myself. I have a team that I work with. I have Ralph Kruger and the coaching staff that we're continuously talking with every day. And that's the type of conversations we're having. So if we would really love a certain position, but we think a different position helps our team and it upgrades us, then we'll do that. And then we'll work on this later. You know what I mean? So that's kind of step by step in the methodical type of way, working to do this over the coming days here.
Hi, Kevin. Paul Hamilton from WGRZ. Hope you've been doing well.
You too, Paul. Good to see you.
You too. And when it comes to your two questions here, with your restricted free agents, have there been any of your restricted free agents that you have already told that they're not going to receive qualifying offers? And number two, when it comes to guys who have arbitration rights, you have a couple of them. Does it make it harder, number one, to negotiate with them with the way things are, a flat cap, and don't know what the economics of the NHL are going to be? So does it make it harder to negotiate with them, number one, or trade their rights, number two?
Yeah. I always feel like the CBA is put in place for a reason. And I felt like this as a player. When you get to a certain point in your career, you've earned certain rights. And now that I'm in this job, players are restricted and they have arbitration rights and they may want to explore that. And I totally understand that. And it's part of the process that we go through, knowing that it can get there. I don't look at it as a bad thing in any way. And I'll say that about unrestricted free agency. If someone came to me as a player or an agent and said, my player really would like to test them, they've earned that right. And I totally understand. We can have an honest conversation. We can say that, hey, we really would like to have you back at this dollar amount. And then they're going to have that ability to say yes, or they're going to test the market. So I guess kind of to summarize the answer to your question, it doesn't make it more challenging. It just makes it making sure you know which player you're dealing with and which rights they have. And ultimately, it's about getting to the result that both sides feel comfortable with. And sometimes arbitration has the ability to help that along, right? Like it's just there's comparables, and you have the agents and the NHLPA that are working on one side, and we certainly have comparables on the other side. We say, okay, here's the range, and then you're working to get to that place that both sides feel comfortable. So I think it's using the CBA both ways to understanding how it works, and ultimately getting to the place where you get the player under contract.
Hey, Kevin. Ted Goldberg from Spectrum News here in Buffalo. Thanks for hopping on. Jeremiah spoke a lot earlier about how he made it seem like, best player available is far more important than drafting compared to position of need, even if you're on a team that might be screaming a certain need at a certain position. When you kind of look into this offseason, especially towards drafting, is it difficult, or maybe not difficult, but to kind of sell to fans if there's a certain player or a certain position that fans want versus there's a position that you want or a player that you want that's kind of jumping out at you?
Yeah. I think the challenge or the art of scouting is projection, right? And so we're certainly talking about world-class elite hockey players that are 18, 19 years old, but my challenge to Jeremiah and the staff is, what do they look like at 23 and 25? And, that is impossible for anyone to see the future. I understand that, but you're trying to do both. You're trying to look and say, okay, what do we need in our organization? What type of player, what type of character, what type of position? But then ultimately, if you think a player is going to project and become a better player at 22, then this player that's maybe at a certain position, you want that player. You know what I mean? So that's where hockey is interesting, because obviously you don't see that many guys step right into the National Hockey League and have a huge impact, where if you're a big Bills fan or you're an NFL fan and you see a guy on TV in college football, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're in the starting lineup. It's just different in hockey a little bit. So you're juggling that. And it's why you really have to do your homework and look at the projection. And I think that is a really critical piece of the scouting world. And why I'm fortunate that we have a good staff, because you really lean on those guys for that.
Hi, Kevin. Joe Yurden here. Wanted to ask about qualifying offers. Are there any players that you will not be qualifying this year? You've got a lot with the RFAs, and are there any UFAs you've decided to part ways with?
Yeah, we're still working through that. I know the deadline's coming. If we had pushed the conference call back a few hours, I might have an answer. I have a meeting coming up this afternoon. We're going to go through it again. So, yeah, I'm not ready to talk about that right now, but we know we're getting close, so we're going to make those decisions shortly.
Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. I might be a little late to the party on this one, but Terry and Kim obviously have, and as the NHL in general has, a focus on finances moving forward. It looks like there's some internal budgets involved. I'm not going to ask you for specifics, but I would like to ask you, when you're looking at the roster and finances, are you focused on salary expenditures for this year or cap hit? And how do any overages affect you moving forward?
Yeah, the overage is obviously something that affects, from this past season, next season. So, you're mindful of that and how you work off of that. When it comes to, where our roster is, I said this, I don't know, maybe it's 2 or 3 weeks ago, or maybe longer now. I've been very fortunate. I think that Terry and Kim have showed over the years since they bought the team that they're going to put every resource possible to help the organization be successful. And their goal is to win a Stanley Cup. I've been put in a position where they want to see us. They want to see us do better. They want to see us put a team on the ice that we're all proud of, and we're going to work towards that. So we've been very fortunate with the ownership we've had and the commitment that they've put into this organization, and that hasn't changed at all. So like any business, I think you want to look at things responsibly. You want to look at all different scenarios to say, how does it affect you from on the ice? How does it affect you financially? How does this put your organization in a position, not just today, but down the road? So you're constantly thinking about those things and having those conversations. And that's where, when it comes to those types of conversations, just be myself and pick up the phone or just walk into Terry or Kim's office and just have the conversation, but those are daily, just so you know, Mike. Like these are things we talk about every day when it comes to decisions. And I think that's my goal, is to put the best team we can on the ice, and also to do it responsibly.
Hi, Kevin. It's Lance again. You have a lot of unrestricted free agents. The one that at least stands out to me is Johan Larsson, given the position he plays and the impact he made last season under Ralph Kruger. Is he a guy, Larsson, that you're interested in bringing back? And if so, do you expect him to test the market? And how do you convince a player like him, who's been around for several years and has experienced a lot of losing, that that there is a brighter future and that he could be part of the solution in Buffalo?
Yeah, I think Lance, maybe I touched on earlier. I think it's great to have conversations and convince, but to me, that's not really what it's about. It's about just daily putting the process in place of doing the right things and making decisions. And ultimately then these little things along the way add up to bigger things. So if I call a player right now and I say, here's what we're going to do, and this is going to be great, that's good. But, that to me is the player can be like, okay, well, show me. And over time, so I'm always balancing that. I'm always going to answer questions and be honest with the players, with coaches. But like I touched on a little bit earlier, we understand that players have rights, and, there's a group, like you mentioned, that are days away from potentially becoming unrestricted free agents. And I totally understand. You put in a lot of years and a lot of time. And if a player's in that position and they want to test it, understood. So, we'll have conversations with different players or representatives right up until, or even after, that have been here before, and we'll see where it goes.
Hi, Kevin. It's Bill again. I was just wondering, with I was kind of asking before, but with the frozen cap and all the uncertainty, do you expect just unrestricted free agency could be different than in past years? Teams might have less money to play with. They so much uncertainty that they might not make a move or two that they made in the past. Do you expect it to be a different market, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, man. It's interesting because I think you have teams that have room, but there's so much uncertainty just, with when are we going to start the season or what's it going to look like? And ultimately long term, where are we going to be at? What are the revenues going to be across the league? I mean, these are all real questions that in previous years maybe weren't thought of as much, but the whole world's dealing with these type of questions in whatever industry that people are involved in. So that's natural. How it affects Friday and what happens, I don't know. I think that there will be, like any year, there will be players out there that are that are highly in demand, and I think you'll see probably those players have the opportunity to go where they want to go, or however that works out. And then there'll be players that maybe a bigger group of players that could be in these conversations with a lot of different teams. Where the money shakes out, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I think we are preparing. We have been preparing. We're looking at every possible scenario because we want to make sure that we're if there's a position or a player that we think can help our team and it's the right one, we want to be able to make the move and do that. So we're going to be ready.
Kev, a lot of scouts say that this is the deepest draft that there's been, especially through the top 12, 14 picks. So, you've got a very coveted pick at number 8. What would it take for a team to pry that pick away? And the fact that it is such a rich draft, does that make it more difficult to consider moving it unless you're blown away?
Yeah, I think it's being open to any and all scenarios, Mike. And like I think I said earlier, I want to help our team get better. I want to help our team get better right now, but I also won't make a decision or won't recommend to make a decision that is not putting ourselves longer term in a good spot. You know what I mean? So that's where the balance is for me. And you're right. I feel very strongly there's a lot of good hockey players in this draft. We like the position we're in, and so I'm open to the conversations. I've had conversations, and we'll see where it goes in the next close to 24 hours, a little more than that now. We'll see what happens, but I'm open to everything. We'll just have to play it by ear.
Hey, John Vogel again. As you said, you've got to get better. With the talks you've had with everybody, do you see the ideal path to getting better through free agency or through trades? Is there a better path at the moment?
Yeah, I think, John, that trades are difficult in the sense that you need a lot to, both sides have to be helping each other, if that makes any sense. Like, nobody goes into a trade just saying, hey, I want to help the other guy, right? So it's, you're trying to figure out fits, and sometimes it can be financial, sometimes it can be just your team or the dynamic, or, there has to be these things. So I think there's the ability to do that through trades. And, we're having those conversations all the time, every day. It's been really busy the last few weeks leading up to the draft and to free agency this week. But at the same point, you want to make sure you're looking at, with free agency, how can you help your roster? And that may not always be, John, the big splash that gets, it could be that player that maybe is a little bit under the radar, but plays a certain role within your team that you really need. So it's doing your homework on all those players across the league and across the world, quite honestly, that are out there that may be able to help us.